Hi, I'm Louise Mowbray, founder of Mowbray by Design and your host. Welcome to Lift, my conscious leadership podcast, Lead into the Future, today. I'm on a mission to bring you powerful insights and very human stories from leaders and entrepreneurs who are each, in their own way, contributing something noteworthy to shaping our world of work. Conscious conversations with people who are being conscious leaders and doing conscious business. My aim is to give you a personal lift to inspire you in your day-to-day business life. Make sure you subscribe now to never miss an episode. Today I'm talking to Mathieu Cocquillon of Mama Money, Africa's first completely cashless money transfer system. Matt and his business partner Raphael Grojnowski originally met in Mozambique and subsequently formulated their business plans whilst travelling through Africa in a big yellow school bus. Mama Money is fundamentally a socially conscious fintech business with a clear purpose of social upliftment through financial inclusion. The company uses technological advances in financial software, social media, and mobile phones to create an entirely new way for people to send money, and as a result, they're able to drastically reduce remittance costs so that more money arrives in the pockets of the people who really need it. Moving money within Africa is a huge challenge. The multi-billion-dollar industry is fraught with difficulties, not least the exorbitant costs. According to recent World Bank reports, remittances to Africa are the most expensive in the world, hovering at around 9.4%. Mama Money manages to bring those fees down to a workable 5%. I wanted to talk to Matt about why he and Raphael started the business, their journey so far, and how Mama Money is touching the lives and affecting the wallets of millions of people across Africa and beyond. So, Matt, tell me all about Mama Money. How did this start for you personally?
So Mama Money is the world's first social business international money transfer operator. So the idea came while backpacking across Africa. I was actually hitchhiking from Cape Town to Cairo, and along the way I met my now business partner, who was originally from Germany, and he was working for the UN for the World Food Program. He was based in Rwanda. And he bought a big yellow German Mercedes bus and he converted it into a mobile home. And he drove from Rwanda to Africa Bern in Cape Town. And on his way back to Rwanda, we met on the beach in Tofu in Mozambique, and he offered me a ride, which I couldn't refuse. And we spent a month and a half driving from Mozambique to his house in Kigali in Rwanda. And I suppose along the way, we spoke a lot about ideas for businesses and, just got to know each other, I suppose, on a trip like that where you're driving for 8 hours a day. You get to know someone pretty well. And so obviously we hit it off very well. And I think a year later, after that trip, I was in Rome and he was in Rome working at the WHO head office. And we just connected and started talking about, what's a great idea for a business that has a massive social impact. And, the World Food Program, the UN always obviously saw that remittances, international money transfers going into food insecure camps or to really poor countries, how much of an impact an extra $1 or $2 would have on the food security of those people receiving the money. And we then looked at South Africa. It's a massive migrant, has a massive migrant population, but also had the most expensive fees in the world, $100, $200 remittances. So we then obviously decided, okay, well, this is a problem that we wanted to tackle. And for us, it was very important that we started a business that wasn't selling shoes on the internet, that actually
right.
had a purpose. So that was important for us. And we then decided to launch Mama Money in South Africa and tackle these high costs of remittances and see if we can reduce the fee and make it more efficient for people to send money home.
Wow, Matt, I'm hearing purpose loud and clear from you. Just a bit of background there. Do either of you have a financial background?
So none of us have a financial background. My business partner, Raphael, is an aid worker by heart. He studied law at Durham in the UK. And he's just one of these really big ideas guys who says, if he says, let's go start a business in Costa Rica and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, then I would be there in a heartbeat, because he's just one of these people that has vision and big ideas. My background is more in business. So I've always been involved in management, in sales, in human resources. I've been a general manager for an online voucher company before. I didn't go to university, so all of my career has been through learning and through, just through what I've done and actual work experience. And I think that, not having a financial background for both of us really helped us to come into the space and look at things completely differently to someone who is trained, with a financial background. I mean, I suppose people that I did know from financial background said to me, "You're crazy. That's never going to work. Eat you up, and you just don't stand a chance." And I suppose that ignorance was a bit of bliss, because if we had known how difficult it is in the beginning, we probably wouldn't have had a crack at it. But because we didn't, and we had a lot of purpose, we did have a crack, and I'm obviously very glad that we did. And those same people that said it was a bad idea now want to very badly invest in our business. So that's quite
right. It's amazing how sometimes that kind of beginner's luck in a way, or just that driven purpose is enough to, and of course, I'm sure that you've found people along route who you need to support you in terms of the financial side, or certainly regulatory side.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you have to find those people. But it's amazing how you can attract the right people by, what your message is from the beginning, that we want to come in and we want to make it less expensive. And, we want to create a business that's profit minimizing, that is sustainable by itself, but, it's not trying to maximize profits. And you find people along the way that share that ideology, whether it's an investor, or someone from the regulatory side of things who's really interested in what you're doing, and you make those connections along the way, and that's obviously what ultimately drives things forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Like attracts like, and profit with purpose, of course, is the backbone of conscious organizations, and certainly conscious leaders driving conscious business. We had a brief chat before we started this, and I asked you if I said conscious leaders driving conscious business, what does that actually mean to you?
I think for a starter, there's many different ways of applying your skill sets and your abilities in the workplace. For myself and for us as a company, it was important that we had a business that actually had an impact. It was, not about making money in an online startup business, and then becoming getting into philanthropy after that, which is one way people do it. So for us, it was important that the business actually made a difference to its customers, and then on top of that, we have a very strong belief in obviously giving back to the communities that we service, because we support migrant communities. We help them to send the money home, so we have that benefit in reducing the fees. But then on top of that, we're also plowing our time and money back into additional projects that can uplift those communities.
Fantastic, Matt. It's really inspirational listening to you. I want to learn a little bit more about the people who work for Mama Money, because from what I understand, they're migrant workers themselves. And the lives that you've touched in these, 6-7 years?
Will be 5 years that will be operational in March 2020, and we were founded in 2013. Yeah, so the people, I suppose in the beginning it was quite interesting, because I was the only South African in a South African-based business. So we had, an initial market that we approached was Zimbabwe. South Africa has the highest amount of Zimbabweans anywhere in the world. I think there's a documented 2.2 million Zimbabweans here, and undocumented probably a little bit more. And so it was an obvious start for us, and we then went about recruiting Zimbabweans in South Africa who could then obviously help us to grow the business. And as the company has grown and we've now sending to 17 different countries in Africa and in Asia, so we've diversified our team and made sure that we have a representative, our team is representative of our customer base. It's really been important for us because, those insights into the different corridors that we service, and they're all so different. You cannot copy paste. Having people here that have the first-hand knowledge and understand it has been really important for us in terms of how we've grown. And so we've always kind of really pushed to have a team that represents our customers.
And community, Matt, that seems to, shout loud and clear from all that you do. You mentioned, you touched on that a little bit earlier, but in what ways is this having an impact in the communities that you serve?
Well, I think that, when we opened up a new corridor, as an example, when we launched into Ghana, we took our time to really understand who the community influencers and leaders were in the Ghanaian space in South Africa. So we went to the embassy, met the consulate general, met organizers of events such as Ghana Excellency Awards and Ghana Festivals and soccer events and things like that. And that was really how we were able to, start to get the word out to customers. And I think in our space, in financial services and remittances, trust is like it's the most important thing. So we had to obviously through networking get the trust of those people who then obviously we were able to get the trust of the general community. And that's really how we were able to launch and grow so successfully and so quickly in these corridors. And then what was very obvious to us was, wow, we've been given so much from these customers. Through them using our service, we need to obviously keep reinvesting back in that relationship. So finding initiatives, whether it's helping students who need help to study, a degree at university, whether it's a Ghanaian hair salon that needs a little bit of a makeover and help in terms of marketing. Those are the kind of things that we really love to do. And I suppose in a way it has a double benefit because we're obviously benefiting from that business, but it just makes so much sense to us that we keep reinvesting in that relationship with and finding other things that we can do that help.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, tell me about the issue about sending money. Why is South Africa and Africa such an expensive place to send money to? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I think number one, if I look at South Africa specifically from a regulatory point of view, it was extremely difficult to be able to start a business here because we have a South African Reserve Bank, which is very regulated. Exchange control, unlike in the UK, is still very much alive and well here. So there was a barrier to entry. So we had existing players like Western Union and MoneyGram who had partnered with banks and controlled the market and were charging between 15 and 20% for remittance. And the global average is around 7%, so way out. And also antiquated, not using any technology, branch to branch, bricks and mortar. You can understand the inefficiencies there. And we've got mobile phones and we've got mobile money and we've got all this technology, but there was no incentive to use it because it was very anti-competitive. When we went along and we went to the Reserve Bank and we said, we want to charge 5%, and we want to make it easier. They really bought into that story and were also under pressure from the World Bank to reduce the costs and find ways to do it. So they introduced a new license category, which was specific for businesses that wanted to do cross-border remittances. We applied for the license, went through an 18-month process, and were awarded with our license. So it was a very exciting experience. It was hard, but at the same time very rewarding at the end to get issued the license and to start trading. So I think that's one of the issues. The other thing is that it's predominantly cash. in Africa, and cash has a cost associated with it. In the first world, transactions are done digitally on the whole, where there's a cash component that adds to the cost. So we had to find a way to get away from bricks and mortar. We have an app. We also use USSD, which means that customers with a basic Nokia phone can still access our platform with no airtime and be able to create orders and send money home. And so we had to kind of, just not reinvent the wheel, but just kind of look at different ways of connecting the dots.
Yeah, so basically needs must. How do we solve, as and when the issues came along and arose, finding creative ways to get through that. And Matt, you've got, I see that you've got a UK license as well. Tell me about the expansion of Mama Money.
Yeah, so, we always had a plan. All entrepreneurs think that they're gonna take their business global. I haven't met one yet who doesn't want to do that. So it was always a plan that we were going to look at other markets outside of South Africa. We have a UK money transfer license, and there's obviously, if you look at the migration over the last few years into Europe, obviously it's a very topical subject, and you see. As an example, Germany took 1 million migrants, I think, 2 years ago, and those people are all going to become economic citizens. They're going to start sending money home to their country. So it's really interesting for us. So our plan was to obviously cement ourselves into the South African market, which we're still doing and growing very quickly. But we have our eye on a launch next year on mainland Europe. So we'll be based in Amsterdam. We will get a license from the Dutch regulator. Brexit has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works because you used to be able to passport your license from the UK into Europe. So obviously now with the Brexit uncertainty, we don't know if if we can do that anymore. So we're just going to play it safe and get a license in Europe. And I think for us, we can base our operations here in South Africa, and a lot of the countries that we currently send to are applicable from Europe. So, to Ghana, to Nigeria, to Kenya, to Uganda. So we already have a lot of the connections in place, and it would just really be about obviously going into a different market and how to acquire customers in Europe.
And how do you balance your growth with funding and all of the typical stop-start of a high-growth organization that is quite aggressive in terms of footprint?
Yeah, with great difficulty. We were lucky enough, I suppose, to find an investor. So in the beginning, if I take a step back, we self-funded the business. So we bootstrapped and we self-funded, and we really, with a very little budget, we made everything count, and we really sweated what little we had. And that was something that I think has put us in good stead going forward, because it's sometimes very dangerous to get a lot of money up front and you don't know what you're doing, and you can spend a lot of money and waste a lot of money and give away a lot of equity and not really have too much to show for it. So I'm very grateful that we went that route, sometimes maybe a little bit harder in the beginning. And when after 3 years we decided, okay, great, listen, we've got something really awesome here, we can really grow it, we need to find an investment partner who can support us. And we actually spent 12 months going through that process of speaking to VCs and speaking to strategic partners and banks, and eventually we settled on the person that we met in our first meeting, who comes from a family office, a family house, who really shared our kind of ideology around the social business and around the impact aspect of it and what we wanted to do. And that has been absolutely golden for us, because if we had taken VC money, obviously there would be other sorts of pressures and that we would have to deal with, and certain growth targets that we would have to achieve. I think we've actually out-achieved what those targets would have been, but without having that additional pressure, I think it just creates what I say to people is that the environment that we have here today, after 5 years, is exactly the same that we had in the beginning. There's no change in agenda or change in kind of what is a priority. It's all kind of been organic and the same. Obviously, we just do it now at a bigger scale.
It's really interesting, actually. I used to own an executive search business in London, purely focused on startups, working with a lot of the investment community, various different types, various different forms. And of course, there's always a massive culture change, even the difference of, between 15 people and 25. There's often a very tangible, notable culture change within an organization. How have you managed to hold on to that?
So we started at the beginning of this year with about 30 full-time employees at our head office. Today we have 125. So we've onboarded over 100 people. Just under 100 people this year. And the decision we took at the beginning of the year was that every single person that's going to start working here this year, whether they are an IT engineer or the HR department, or they're working in our kitchen because we provide lunch for our team every day, they have to meet either myself or my business partner Raph, and we have to meet them and do a cultural interview with them. So we were very hands-on on the recruitment side of things. I mean, it's obviously exhausting, a lot of interviews, but we felt that we had heard so many stories about companies growing so quickly and losing that culture, or finding out that they've hired the wrong people and then they've had to really have this toxicity that can happen. So we were very kind of adamant that we're going to do our best to not go down that route. And what we actually started doing was we would have like a bunch of 5 to 10 people that were starting in the following month. And what we started doing was actually going out for dinner with them before they started. So we'd organize a meetup somewhere around town, and we would have it, and just start that kind of onboarding process even before that first day, so that when people were coming in, they already knew who this person was and that person was, and they started getting a feeling for it. And I think that really helps in that people were able to come in and already have a little bit of an idea of what the culture was like and who the people were. So they were able to come in quite quickly. Because what was obviously important is that with all the new people coming, how does the roots of the culture keep going down? So it was important that any new people coming in were quickly onboarded and passing that knowledge on. And then equally, the people that have been with us since the beginning, who created the culture, we don't have a high turnover of staff at all. We have a very loyal team that have been here since the beginning, and those are kind of our kind of custodians of our culture, and we treasure them and make sure that they're happy, and they then obviously help with the onboarding.
And that thinking, that philosophy, Matt, do you extend it to your entire stakeholder group? Is it extended to suppliers and everybody else who has an impact on your business? Is that something that you really focus on?
Yes, we've always said that we value relationships long term above everything else. So with suppliers that we started working with from the beginning, is that we said, listen, we don't really have a lot of money to pay you today, but we have this idea, and it's a big one. And if you help us out here, and we can have a really long and meaningful relationship, and the work that you do can also have an impact. And we found with some of our tech suppliers who were making tech for banks and big retailers, their businesses didn't really have that social impact and that connection to a greater cause as much as ours did. And people really responded to that. They were like, wow, okay, cool, this is maybe a bit of a passion project, or we'll take a little bit of a hit, but this is really great work, and our teams will really get excited about it. And that was kind of infectious. And, a lot of those suppliers have come with us, along that journey. Sometimes we outgrow the size of the supplier, but we're still friends and they still come to our parties. So it has been something that we've applied to all aspects of the business.
So it almost makes me think of the The African philosophy around it takes a village.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. So, Matt, you've won all sorts of extraordinary accolades in the last year or so. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've won a couple of awards. I mean, I think that's, one of the things that we decided right in the beginning was that we weren't going to go out and chase awards, and we weren't going to, go to all the conferences that we get invited to, and really just focus on the business, and which we did. So yeah, it's great to get the acknowledgement, definitely. For the awards and the things that we have been doing. We definitely are grateful and appreciative, but our focus really does remain internally. Our team is growing very quickly, and we need to spend as much time here as possible, so that it's sustainable growth over the long term.
So, Matt, how do you deal with fundraising and the valuation of your business?
I believe that it's interesting that we definitely live in a society, in a world where how much money a startup raises is really celebrated a lot more than a company that is sustainable in the long term. So it's kind of this weird. The more money you raise, the better you are. But I've seen a lot of companies raise a lot of money and go out of business, and I've seen a lot of companies that don't raise a lot of money that are doing very well, and that are succeeding, that are sustainable, that are making enough profits to grow and survive. And you don't hear that too often. And I suppose it's, as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to get enticed by someone walking in and saying, "Oh, this is amazing business. You guys are great. This is the evaluation." You look at your business partners and you go, "Wow, this is incredible. Like, let's do it." And I would really advise people to give that a lot of thought, because it's a lot of ego, and often it's for me, it's often around, or it's mostly around the investor who's going to work best with you. That they might not give you the best evaluation, but in the long term, they're going to be the ones that are going to make sure that your actual company value is realized, and obviously your goal and your mission is realized. And in the long term, it's actually going to be better for you than a short-term fix of, "Wow, look at this evaluation." Because with those high evaluations come serious terms, serious pressure. It will potentially change the dynamics in your company and your company culture, not for the better, for the worse. So I would really give that some thought, and first and foremost, choose an investor who is aligned with your values more than anything else.
Yeah, I hear you. And Matt, tell me about a day in the life of Matt.
It varies. I typically tend to get up quite early, around 5:30. I will start sending out some messages and emails and checking in on the numbers of what happened on the previous day, and just setting the day up really in my mind and what we're going to, what I want to do. There's obviously quite a lot of exercise in there. I will cancel a meeting because I need to go and exercise. So I definitely try and get that balance right. And if there's no exercise in a day, then I will cancel a meeting and say, let's postpone. I need to go climb, or I need to go run, or I need to go and play tennis. And then, typically it's about, coming into the office, meetings, making sure that, people have the support that they need, and that they are getting everything they need to be successful. And it's kind of a different mindset at the moment, because we're trying to be less operational day to day, and the small things that are happening, is trying to be more strategic. So it's kind of like that extraction phase where you're trying to pull yourself out, and I suppose what we said to ourselves is we need to move out of the way. And we're lucky enough now to be able to hire very smart people who are exceptional at what they do, and we don't want to be the bottleneck or the people getting in the way. So it's a bit of a tricky phase, because you're there, but you also want to give people the space that they can do what they need to do. So it's just about balancing that out, and then when something does go wrong, making sure you're there to jump in and support.
Fantastic. Matt, I have to say your energy is wonderfully infectious. So I can really understand how you've built this business from the way that you've described it to me. If you had to give somebody else some advice who's starting out, who's building a socially conscious business, what would you say?
I think that I suppose what is important is that you need to try and find a way to make it 100% of what you're doing. I know that that's not always possible for people, but I really believe that, we took a big risk in the beginning by, investing all of our money that we had in the world, our life savings and all of our time, and saying, we're not going to have this as a side hustle or a project that we're going to do on the side. If we're going to do it, we need to go at it 100%. And if what I would say to someone is that if that is an option for you and the risks are slightly higher, that is what I would recommend, because it is something that does require that, to be 100% focused. And I've seen so many people who I've come across who have these ideas and these side things, but they're doing it in conjunction with something else, and they invariably fizzle out. Then I think it's all about surrounding yourself with people who share your values. It's obviously exceptionally important. Having people who have different skill sets to yourself. I think often you'll find you'll have some founders who are all very strong in sales or all very strong on tech, and obviously you need to have a full set of skills in order to start a business and run a business. So find complementary skills with the same values, and then it's 100% about the team. It's not about you; it's about the people that you employ. And if you have a great team, you can do anything.
Wonderful. Great message. Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate your time. It was really fabulous to talk to you, and I wish you all the best with Mama Money.
Thank you, Louise. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Lift. I'm delighted you're here. If you'd like to connect with Matt, head over to my website, mowbraybydesign.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes and relevant links. Whilst you're there, don't forget to subscribe to the show in iTunes or any of your favorite platforms to never miss an episode. And if you're loving Lift, I'd really appreciate a rating in iTunes, or simply share with a friend who needs a lift. You can get in touch with me for coaching or speaking engagements by sending an email to louise@mowbraybydesign.com or click on the contact button on my site. Until next time, lift yourself, lift another.